This part here is really the honest section. I'm nervous. I'm anxious. I'm really. There's a lot of self-doubt. There's no question about that. There's a lot of self-doubt, but a lot of hope. A lot of hope. A lot of hope that people will like it. All right, everybody. TheRealSherifM here, and I know I haven't uploaded a video reviewing knives in a little bit, and there's a reason for that. I mean, it was just Thanksgiving recently, and I had some friends visiting me from out of town and all of that good stuff. So I hope you guys had a wonderful Thanksgiving. You guys didn't eat too much, didn't get too fat. I know I definitely did. But there's another reason actually why I really haven't been posting anything lately. And that's because I am trying to bring my first knife design to market under the ManganasSteel name. And it is definitely an interesting process. So I thought I would give you guys a little bit of an insight into what I've been doing, what it takes, and kind of my thought process going into it. So this is, I thought, would be very interesting, actually, because nobody else really talks about this stuff openly, and I wanted to do something a bit different there. I wanted to take you guys along on the journey with me and kind of see the steps step by step, for lack of a better way of putting it. So if you guys know me and know my previous work, for example, like the GRAZIOSO here, I have really enjoyed licensing designs with other companies. However, for whatever reason lately, it's become, I don't know, like a bit contentious. A lot of the factories are not accepting new designs except from a handful of designers. The usual makers like Ray Laconico, which I've got no grudge against him or anything like that. I love Ray, actually. My all-time favorite being his Eazy-E he did with Alliance Designs. But they are not working with designers as much anymore. Either they're going for really like unknown people, or they're going for the usuals like Ray Laconico or Ostap Hell or what have you. And so like I submitted a bunch of designs to KIZER and a few others only to get rejected. And I have 12 unique knife designs. So I decided it was finally time to pull the trigger and start releasing some of these designs that you guys all love, under my own name. And the first one that I chose was this guy. I'm gonna spin the camera around here. This is the Kaimano. If you guys remember this is one of my more recent designs. It has this aggressively angled tanto tip here. Nice, flat, broad, hollow area. Yes, this is a big hollow right through here. Reinforced tip, harpoon. And the harpoon actually with this little swedge here is really for like pinch gripping and getting better grips on the knife. You have this nice curved ramp section here to accommodate your thumb. I don't know if you guys are going to see that very clearly, but with nice aggressive jimping specced right there. And it's my usual love. It's a bolster lock, just like the GRAZIOSO. So you've got this two-tone of materials titanium knurled back spacer here. Come on, there we go. Got just a standard clean pocket clip. Nothing too fancy, nothing too flashy here. And then, of course, the bolster lock. And this is going to be one of the new things introduced on this model. All of my individually produced knives are going to feature this newly redesigned logo. Anything that's licensed will have the logo that you guys already have seen, which is a little bit more simplistic. So this is going to be unique to the Manganas Steel brand. So look for that actually going forward. So this is the knife I chose to do as my first one. I have some interesting other new designs in the works. Just as a little preview, there's this crazy guy called the Furia that I'm working on. It's a big one, that's for sure. It's actually much bigger even than the Kaimano here. But the Kaimano's got about a 3.5-inch blade, and it has a big aperture for flicking, and it's got the flipper tab right here. It has a nice relief for the closing action. As you can see, I've put some jimping right in here, not too much, but it should be very accessible actually. If we look at it directly from the side, should be plenty of room right there to get your thumb in and actuate this knife. So when I first submitted this to KIZER, they rejected it, but given how much I really like the fit and finish here on the GRAZIOSO, I decided to actually work with them on doing the Kaimano, because I love the blasted finish. Everything about this is exactly what I like about my knives. I don't mind getting snail trails or anything like that, because I think a knife is a tool. It should be usable. And I wanted to have this sort of relationship with this knife, because this knife is supposed to be a user. Oh, and I forgot to show you, there are some relief cuts here for the flipper tab up top. So the first thing, let's bring this back around here. So the first thing that I had to really deal with in making decisions about this knife was the steel. So the way KIZER works is they have a minimum order quantity, and there are a number of factors you need to decide upon before you go into production, and even for prototypes. So for them, they offered me 3 steel options, which I was a little surprised it was only 3, to be 100% honest with you. But I'm okay with that, because their steel options were pretty good. The first option was 3V, which really made me pause and think, because 3V is a tough steel, and I like toughness. I like toughness a lot in my knives. There's nothing worse to me than dropping a knife and having the edge deform really easily, or chipping it, or even breaking off of a tip. Now, having said that, 3V is not stainless, and really to ensure that the 3V would not rust on people, it meant that all of the knives that I would be doing would have to have coated blades, which I'm not really... I like, but I don't think it was the move for this particular design. Now, the next option that they gave me was S35VN. S35VN is a phenomenal steel. Part of the reason I like S35VN is because if you look at Laren Thomas's book, the edge retention capabilities of S35VN are actually fairly close to M390. They're not exactly the same, obviously, but fairly close. And for an EDC knife, you definitely want good edge retention. But it's also fairly tough for, a powdered stainless steel. So S35VN definitely caught my eye. Another reason why it really made me pause and think was because here's the reality, people. Majority of the time when you're getting M390, I don't care who it is, with the exception of maybe like Riot and maybe KIZER. I haven't tested the 20 CV from KIZER, and maybe ZT. I don't know. Even ZT, I'd want to get it tested to be sure. But majority of the time, you're not getting the optimal HRC with M390. Actually, yeah, I can pretty much say, maybe with the exception of Riot, you're not getting the optimal HRC out of M390. So all of you who are buying M390 blades for its performance are not getting the performance out of it. And M390 20CV is just, I don't know. I don't understand why. I don't know. I do, okay. I do kind of know. Generally, when they're doing heat treating on blades in these big factories, they're doing them in large batches. So some are getting the optimal heat treat, others are not. It's a roll of the dice. So you're not as likely to get the ideal heat treat statistically as you should out of M390. So for whatever reason, S35VN, you do. So if I have a choice personally, I would much rather get a steel that's performing at its ideal or damn near close to its ideal than a premium steel that's performing subpar, that's essentially performing the exact same as the S35VN at its optimal. It just, I don't know. That's my logic, And in my experience, S35VN is tougher than M390. The numbers also prove that. So if I'm getting the same edge retention as a poorly heat-treated M390, or not poorly, but non-optimally heat-treated M390, but I'm also getting the benefit of better toughness, S35VN is definitely the way I want to go. Absolutely the way I want to go. My philosophy is that knives should be tools. They should be something that you use and depend on. And I want my things done optimally. Really, as much as possible. That's what I want my brand name to be associated with. So S35VN, definitely number one choice. The last option that they gave me was 154 CM, and that's the non-powdered 154. If they had given me an option for one CPM 154, I would have considered it, but 154 CM, while not a bad steel, I mean, here's an Emerson in 154 CM. And I use it. It's a tough steel. It's great. I don't really have any bitches about it. S35VN won the day. It absolutely did. So that was decision number one, kind of taken care of. The next set of decisions that I needed to make was, before I take this thing into production, I'm getting multiple prototypes. So with KIZER's MOQs, minimum order quantity, that I'm going to be operating at for my first run, they gave me the choice of two handle finishes. So let me show you what I had to choose from. These are the handle options for we have two different PDFs here. So the first one is for G10. And as you guys can see, they have a lot of finish. They have a polished G10. They have an oil finish G10 and a water washed. And look at that. Look at how many different options. It was truly a little bit overwhelming. They also have Rich Light, which I don't have any experience with personally. So I was kind of on the fence about that. Then, of course, the classical carbon fiber offerings, which is cool, but I think like carbon fiber is getting, I don't know, it's getting a little passé. Like everybody kind of does carbon fiber. So what's special about it? And then here, I don't know if this is going to come through clearly, so I'll zoom in. But these are the Damascus G10 offerings. And while initially like pretty interesting, I don't know, I ended up actually passing on these because they just didn't seem to fit the character, you know? So that's, you know, the first catalog here. And we'll go back up here to the top. The other PDF here was for micarta. So let's make this guy a little bit bigger so you guys can kind of see it. But they started here with burlap, you know, black burlap and natural burlap. Now here's the thing. I actually really wanted to do a black burlap in an oiled finish, but I was not happy with the appearance of this. I don't know if you guys can really see that, but like you're not seeing any of the stitching. You're not seeing, like, you can see the stitching here a lot more, or like the burlap threads, not the stitching, you know. And even if we go up to the black, in the second one, maybe you see it, but I don't know. I was just not impressed by this. Like, my standard is RUCKUS, and RUCKUS is just far superior here, particularly in the burlap. So if I can't have it the way I want, I'm just not gonna bother, you know. This just didn't feel quality for me. So now this is where it gets interesting, because we have this ivory paper and white linen. And when I did my original sort of introduction of this guy, one of the versions that I had shown looked like this. Let me pull it up for you guys, or at least like let me show it to you. I have all of these crazy materials here. We're looking for, here we go, for this. So this may be a little blown out on camera. Let me see if I can show you guys a little bit here. But essentially it was an ivory scale. Let's see if I drop the brightness down a little bit on this rendering, if this will come through a little bit better. Yeah, does that help you guys? I hope it does. But essentially the idea was to have a sort of ivory handle. And I don't know, like everybody responded to it really quickly and really strongly. And even me, I like it. It feels really nice and premium. And so it's kind of on the fence about this. So I consulted with a couple of knife makers, and they said, really, like, as much as you can, avoid the white linen because it's so porous. It'll actually end up looking pretty dirty as time goes on. If you have to use one, go with the ivory paper. But even still, like, a lot of people were discouraging me from using this white any form of micarta. So then we get down into kind of more of the traditional stuff. You have natural linen here and natural canvas. So here's where I stopped. Essentially, I ended up going with this guide, number 2, for one of my sets, for one of my prototypes. This is the oiled natural canvas. I'm a big fan of it. I think it looks really good. I don't know, it has a little bit more character than if you look at like an OD green. And as much as I love OD green, I've just come to really like just the raw natural canvas. So this is going to be the handle color for one of the prototypes. And we'll just go through the rest of these here. You got paper, then we start with the greens, green linen, black canvas. Black canvas was really tempting, I'm not gonna lie. It looks really good. They have black paper, black linen, OD green, canvas. Also, always a good choice, but I think the brown has a little bit more of a character to me. But let me know down in the comments what you guys think here. Red, which is a little too much for me. And here is the whole lineup, essentially. So, in going through all of these, the advice was to avoid the white micartas as much as possible. So, I did the oiled natural canvas here, and then going back to the G10, I actually found that under, where is it here? The polished finish. They have an ivory. This guy right here. Let's zoom in. And I actually really like polished G10. I'm a very big fan. It feels incredibly premium when it's done well. So fingers crossed that they do this really well with the polishing. You can often see some of these layer lines when you do polish G10. I don't know if that's going to come through in the camera or not, but it feels incredibly nice. I have a old school Spyderco by South Hard Knives that has polished G10, and it is by far one of my favorite, and somehow it still feels grippy in the hand. So you guys can kind of see where my logic went with all of this stuff. So we ended up doing, as I mentioned, the natural micarta and then the ivory polished G10 for 2 of the prototypes. The third prototype is in a material that is actually not featured here, but is the Purple Haze Fat Carbon. And that's not something that I really talked about or showed in my previous sort of development or announcement of this new design. But it's something that I've always wanted to see. And I've never had a knife that was actually in my hands with fat carbon, particularly with the Purple Haze, which is my absolute favorite. So that's going to be the third prototype. So Purple Haze, ivory polished micarta, or ivory polished G10, and then natural oiled micarta. So that was the next set of decisions. Once that was all taken care of and finalized, The rest of the sort of details were about stuff like, okay, do I want the same finish as is on the premium Grazioso. I loved the blasted titanium finish. I'm all about that, actually. I've sent knives in to get customized with that finish. Same thing, titanium pocket clip, titanium backspacer, all of that. I didn't do any coloration on the hardware. I like just straight up silver. It definitely is more my character, as you can see. And I spec'd a satin finish on the blade because I like satin finishes. I really, for me, they show everything, you know, in the blade that's beautiful. I mean, look at that. Look at that. Just pretty, man. Like, absolutely pretty. So, all of this has been decided upon, and I ordered prototypes. I will tell you that the 3 prototypes were not cheap. They were right around, all said and done, right around like 900 US to get 3 prototypes. And that's nothing to sneeze at, really. Now, that is not reflective of the final price. For the final price of the knives, I'm really targeting the $180 to $200 price point, just like the premium Grazioso. You know, I think that that's an excellent price point for a premium knife that's made to this build quality and with these materials, the S35, the bolster lock, blasted titanium scales, you know, all of that. Now, again, I'm sure there's some people who are going to say, oh, but M390. Again, M390 is just, it's not heat treated right. It just isn't. And if you want a tool that actually functions and does what a tool is supposed to do, you want it to be optimal. And you're much closer to getting an optimized heat treat with S35VN. So for me, that's just a no-brainer. And I would much rather a premium S35VN that can run through the paces that I put any of my knives through. And this guy is going to be a bit of a harder use knife. It's going to be right in that middle ground between a EDC / harder use knife. It's not going to be overly thick, but it's not going to be slim. It's going to be about 3.5 inches, so it's a little bit beefier. But the overall sort of use case for this is to be kind of like a tough EDC knife, you know? So, as usual, I want it to be beautiful. As usual, I want it to be very functional. So, I think 180 to 200 is a fair price point for something premium at that level of capability, if I'm honest. So let me know down in the comments what you think. I know this is a bit of a longer video, but man, I wanted to kind of share the journey with you guys and be honest about numbers and prices and things like that. It's looking like the first run will be about 300 units. And if I'm 100% honest with you guys, like, I am stressed the hell out because I don't know if my name can carry that many units. I don't think I'm big time. I definitely don't think I'm anybody special in this space. I'm just somebody who has distinct views and a design background. And I always put a premium on ergos and usability. So, you know, that's cool and all, but I'm just not, I don't know. I'm just not anybody known or anybody special or anything like that. And it's my number one worry is that, I want to take pre-orders and all of that stuff to get this guy made. I just worry that I may not get there because my name doesn't carry that much weight. But hopefully, my goal is that by doing this series, people will get excited for it, and maybe we can make this first one a success. Yeah, that's my hope, really. And to be honest, that's part of why I chose the Tonto first, because there's a lot of people who really like Tontos. A lot of people, myself included, as I've shown plenty of times here. I love the Easy E with its Tonto tip. If you even remember the Emerson that I showed, this is a recurve with a Tonto, American Tonto style tip. I mean, this thing's crazy. But I find the knives eminently useful. And I know a lot of other people do too. So I wanted to bring my version to market instead of doing the safe thing. The safe thing would have been just to do a straight drop point. But if you guys have heard my rants before, there's so many drop points on the market. And what do you need another one for? I mean, if you have a bug out, you have, I don't know, the new KIZERs with the clutch lock and all of this stuff. Like, what am I going to offer you that you guys don't already have, just a different look? So that's where the Tonto comes from, really. I had some opinions about the tip angle on the Tonto and the amount of area for the flat section and things like that, and handle shape and, tip, or working the tip and stuff like that. Like, I really wanted the users to be able to, like, get up and be able to use the tip, or, if they really need to get up and, jam their thumb in there and just be able to, like, chisel with that leading edge. So all of this I took into consideration, even the tip of the Tonto being lower and closer to the center line of your grip, things like that for good sort of piercing action. This is the Tonto that I feel I've always wanted on some level. So I'm praying it's successful. I'm praying that the prototypes are not going to need a ton of reworking, especially for how expensive they are. Jesus. Oh man. But that's part of the process. I'm not gonna lie. So you just kind of gotta bite the bullet if you're gonna go for it. And hopefully, I didn't bore you guys too much. This part here is really the honest section. I'm nervous. I'm anxious. I'm really. There's a lot of self-doubt. There's no question about that. There's a lot of self-doubt, but a lot of hope. A lot of hope. A lot of hope that people will like it. And there's no questions asked. Like, once I get this, it's going to be sent out to a few reviewers, not for reviews, but for feedback, because I need to know what's working and what's not working, and some changes and things that I can make, and maybe reviews. But that's not my first priority. My first priority is making sure this damn thing works in other people's hands, and yeah, we'll go from there, guys. I'm starting to ramble. I'm feeling vulnerable, so I'm gonna call it there. But hope you guys like this little insight and look into the process. And I'll catch you up when there's a part 2 to this. It's going to be a little while. It's going to take them about about a month and a half to month and a half to 2 months to finish these. So hopefully early in the new year, I'll be getting these guys, or yeah, just at the end of January. So this is not going to be something where there's rolling continuous updates, but just wanted to bring you guys along for the ride.